For Venezuelan patrol boats raced across the Caribbean, convinced they were about to intimidate a lone American destroyer. What they didn't know was that they were charging straight at a U.S. aircraft carrier strike group, one of the deadliest formations afloat. Within minutes, radars locked on, helicopters dropped low, and both sides slid a heartbeat away from a war nobody wanted. Here's how one misread radar almost lit up the ocean. November 5, 2025, Puerto Cabello. 4:36 a.m. local time, a Venezuelan Navy patrol squadron slipped out of Puerto Cabello under strict radio silence. For boats, each armed with 12.7mm heavy machine guns and aging Soviet-era 73mm launchers, cut through the dark water. Their mission was direct and simple: intercept the American warship trespassing into Bolivarian waters. But the Americans weren't the ones in trouble. The Venezuelan squadron's intel was already outdated. Their supposed target wasn't a lone destroyer limping along the coast. It was the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, 100,000 tons of floating steel and aviation fury, escorted by 6 warships. By 5:21 a.m., radar operators aboard the Ike picked up faint southern echoes. Small, fast, uncoordinated, not commercial shipping. Bridge combat. We have 4 surface contacts, 27 miles and closing. The captain glanced over. Copy. Let's light them up. Instantly, the USS Gravely and USS Mason adjusted course, forming a defensive wedge ahead of the carrier. The escort pattern cinched in tight. Phalanx CIWS turrets rotated to standby, their motors whining softly. Everyone topside knew this posture meant one thing: potential hostile approach. On the Venezuelan lead boat, NA-23, the captain pushed his throttle past 40 knots. He believed he was chasing an American destroyer running alone. His radar operator didn't bother checking the enormous signature lurking behind it: the carrier itself. At 5:48 a.m., the Venezuelan squadron finally broke radio silence. "You are entering Bolivarian waters. Alter course immediately." No reply, just the emptiness of static. 3 minutes later, they reached visual range. And that's when every sailor on Naguada 23 understood the magnitude of their mistake. They weren't facing a destroyer. They weren't even facing a pair of American escorts. They were staring down an entire U.S. Navy carrier strike group that had already locked every sensor, satellite link, and weapons array onto their position. The Venezuelan boats hadn't approached an American ship. They had charged straight at the American formation designed to end fights before they start. At the center, the Dwight D. Eisenhower, call sign Ike, a nuclear-powered fortress with 4.5 acres of armored flight deck and nearly 70 aircraft on board. To her crew, she's a floating metropolis. To anyone reckless enough to challenge her, she's a steel hurricane from hell. Guarding her flanks, 2 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, Gravely and Mason, each carrying more than 90 vertical launch cells loaded with everything from Tomahawk cruise missiles to Sea Sparrow interceptors. On the outer ring, a Ticonderoga-class cruiser, Philippine Sea, sweeping the battle space with sensors that could track a mosquito at 250 miles. Above them, 2 MH-60 are Seahawk helicopters, sonar dipping, infrared scanning, hunting for threats before anyone else even smelled danger. The carrier's Combat Information Center fused all this radar, sonar, satellite data into a single battlespace mosaic that stretched across half the Caribbean. So when the Venezuelan boats appeared, every ship saw them at the exact same moment. The system tagged them: Skunk Alpha 1 through 4, unknown contacts, course north, speed 42 knots. The standing order went out: maintain course, do not engage unless fired upon. It's a simple rule, one forged by decades of close calls. The U.S. Navy doesn't blink first. They let you get just close enough to realize the depth of your mistake. And for Venezuelan captains, we're seconds away from learning that lesson. At 5:52, Gravely's radar operator leaned forward. Contact accelerating, bearing steady. They're not changing course. That one sentence electrified the Combat Information Center. For blips crept across the main scope, 22 miles out now. This wasn't smuggler behavior. Smugglers zigzag, duck, avoid radar. These boats were charging straight at a U.S. carrier group. The Gravely's captain made the call. Broadcast on Maritime Emergency Channel. The radio operator keyed up. Unidentified Venezuelan vessels. This is a United States Navy warship. You are operating in international waters. Alter course immediately. Silence. The Venezuelan formation split. 2 boats low and tight to the waves. 2 sweeping wide into a pincer. Not random. Not sloppy. Coordinated. Meanwhile, on the Eisenhower's flight deck, crew chiefs sprinted to prep another MH-60 R Romeo. Its assignment, eyes on target. 2 minutes later, its rotors were clawing at the thick Caribbean air. The pilot climbed to 500 feet. Sensors active. Visual contact. For fast patrol craft, approximately 45 feet, navy gray Venezuelan flags. Forward-mounted guns. The video feed streamed into every ship in the group, for white wakes slicing toward them. At 6:01, the Venezuelan lead boat locked onto radar return Echo 2. According to their intel packet, Echo 2 was a U.S. destroyer sailing without carrier escort. A perfect chance to buzz close, fire a few warning bursts, film the footage, and hand Caracas a propaganda victory. They wanted to show the world they could push back. But their intel was 2 days old. Echo 2 wasn't alone anymore. Overnight, the carrier strike group had shifted position. The radar blip they were chasing wasn't a destroyer at all. It wasn't a destroyer. It was the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, the flagship herself. From the bridge of Naguada 23, the silhouette rising over the horizon looked wrong. Too wide, too flat, too tall. The radar return filled their entire scope. For a moment, their captain thought he was seeing 2 ships side by side. But the reflection off the aircraft elevators and tower lights told the truth. They were staring at an aircraft carrier. By now, the U.S. strike group was fully alert. Gravely and Mason shifted positions, blocking the small craft with practiced precision. Helicopters kept steady eyes overhead. Inside the Eisenhower's Combat Direction Center, every sensor was glued to the Venezuelan formation. Still trying to complete their show of force, the Venezuelans fired 2 short bursts into the water. Not aimed, just for effect. But for a U.S. carrier at high alert, muzzle flashes aren't theatrics. Gravely's fire control radar locked on instantly. Target tracking spun up across the fleet. The Venezuelan boats found themselves bathed in weapons-grade targeting signals. Alarms erupted inside their cabins. Shrill missile lock warnings they had never heard before. In less than a minute, it became painfully clear. They hadn't intimidated an American destroyer. They had threatened a nuclear-powered carrier strike group with live weapons sitting 1 heartbeat from release. The Venezuelan commander shouted over the radio, voice cracking, "Cease approach! Cease approach! Disengage!" But calm words came too late. The American response was already in motion. 6:03. Inside the Eisenhower CDC, the voice came over the speakers. Calm, clinical, terrifying. Condition 1. Weapons release authorized for self-defense. On the Gravely, sailors manned the 5-inch gun. The Phalanx CIWS turret spun to life, tracking the fast boats automatically. Its barrel humming at 4,500 rounds per minute. One flick of a switch, and the Caribbean sky would erupt like the 4th of July. Overhead, the Seahawk dipped to 200 feet, hovering above the oncoming patrols. The sensor operator zoomed in. Men on the Naguada 23, bandanas, helmets, knuckles white around their triggers. Then the pilot heard it, the unmistakable tone of fire control radar. A Venezuelan boat had locked onto the Gravely. That was the final catalyst. "Bridge, we are painted," the pilot reported. "Copy. Maintain eyes. Do not engage unless fired upon." Inside the Eisenhower, the tactical action officer walked the rules of engagement checklist line by line. U.S. policy never changes. Don't start a fight, but end it decisively if one begins. A long electric minute passed. Every gunner, every operator, every sailor held their breath. The Venezuelan boats eased off speed, barely. Then one abruptly surged forward again, skimming the surface at 45 knots straight toward the Gravely's bow. Stand by countermeasures. chaff pods armed, laser designators warmed. One wrong motion, one stray burst, and everything would explode in seconds. The Gravely's captain stayed steady. He knew the reality. For small patrol boats against 2 destroyers and a carrier, that's not a battle, that's a suicide letter written in salt water. 6:06. The Seahawks crew called it in. One vessel has broken formation, turning away. Then another. Radar echoes faded one by one. The standoff was dissolving, not quickly, and definitely not cleanly. American guns stayed hot. Radios stayed cold. Because everyone knew, a retreating boat can still pull a trigger. 6:07. Then it happened. One Venezuelan boat, hull number 23, peeled off, swinging wide and looping back toward the carrier's southern flank. Whether it was confusion, bravado, or a radio failure, no one could tell. But to the Americans watching on radar, it looked like an attack run. Contact closing fast, bearing 210. Instantly, every ship shifted into defensive geometry. The USS Mason altered course, sliding between the carrier and the oncoming contact. The CIWS spun. Missile hatches cracked open. One wrong move now would ignite a very short war. From above, the Seahawk pilot called out, "Lead Venezuelan boat is turning inside Mason's wake. Distance, 1.5 nautical miles. In naval terms, that's a handful of seconds." Inside the Mason's CIC, the tactical watch officer remained cool. "If that boat crosses 1,000 yards, engage with a warning burst." "Copy. 1,000-yard line." The Venezuelan boat kept coming. Mason fired 2 green flares. Standard U.S. signal. "Turn away now." No reaction. Then the mistake that almost ended everything. The Venezuelan gunner racked his deck gun's charging handle. A sharp metal-on-metal sound picked up cleanly by the Seahawk's microphone. "Muzzle movement confirmed," the pilot reported. "Target within 900 yards. Gravely's captain held up his hand. "Hold fire. Just a second longer." 6:08. The Venezuelan boat suddenly snapped hard to port, engines howling as it flung a wall of white spray across the sea. The rest followed suit, formation dissolving into chaos. Then the message crackled over comms. "Contacts retreating. All units stand down weapons. Maintain tracking." And just like that, a gunfight both sides never actually wanted, yet were seconds away from triggering, evaporated into the morning haze. By 7 o'clock, the water was empty again. No Venezuelan hulls. No sonar pings. No engine echoes fading across the surface. The strike group resumed course at 20 knots, pushing north into calm seas. But the confrontation wasn't finished. It was simply changing fronts, from the ocean to the political arena. 2 hours later, Venezuelan state media blasted out a grainy, overexposed clip. It showed their patrol boats racing across the waves, overlaid with triumphant narration claiming they had forced an American warship to withdraw from Venezuelan waters. In Washington, the Pentagon answered within minutes. They released satellite imagery and complete radar logs showing the U.S. strike group was operating in international waters, more than 80 miles off the Venezuelan coast. The Navy called the incident reckless brinkmanship. Caracas called it sovereign defense. Both sides had arguments. Neither side had any intention of backing down. Diplomats scrambled to cool tempers. No shots fired, no casualties, just a near miss. But every sailor aboard the Eisenhower knew the truth. The gap between a near miss and a war can be as thin as one misunderstood radio call, or a single nervous finger tightening on a trigger guard. By the next morning, the Eisenhower strike group quietly shifted farther north. The Venezuelan patrol boats crept back into port under strict radio silence. Publicly, both nations moved on. Privately, everyone at sea knew this wouldn't be the last close call in these waters. People assume warships see everything, but the ocean hides errors better than any battlefield on Earth. In darkness or poor visibility, a destroyer and a carrier can look almost identical on an aging radar screen. 2 massive steel hulls throwing back similar echoes, electromagnetic noise bouncing off wind-chopped waves. Add in fatigue, outdated equipment, and rushed briefings, and suddenly your target isn't what you think it is. That's exactly what happened here. The Venezuelan crews relied on shore-fed radar plots, not live ship sensors. Their coordinates came from a static grid that didn't update with the carrier group's overnight repositioning. In the Caribbean, even a 30-mile drift can turn a routine patrol into a full-blown international incident. And when politics gets stirred into the mix, when every maneuver is interpreted through suspicion instead of logic, things escalate fast. Naval officers have a name for it: threat mirroring. Both sides think the other is the aggressor, even when they're both just trying not to get hit. The truth is simple. Modern navies depend on human judgment just as much as satellites and software. One misread radar echo, one garbled transmission, one panic gesture, and suddenly you have a crisis no one planned and nobody wants. The official reports later wrapped this up as a routine encounter. Sailors who lived it called it something else. The closest they'd ever come to firing live rounds outside of wartime. Looking back, you can't help but wonder how thin that line really is. One flare fired a second too late. One radar lock held a moment too long. One commander losing his nerve. That's all it takes to turn a tense standoff into headlines the world isn't ready for. See, there is no replay button. Once you commit, you live with whatever comes next. So here's the question for you. You're on the bridge. The alarms are screaming. For fast boats are closing in at 40 knots. Do you hold fire and risk getting hit? Or do you pull the trigger first? Drop your answer below. I'm curious how you'd call that one. Thanks for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, tap that like button, share it with someone who loves naval stories, and make sure you subscribe so you never miss a debrief the next time the ocean gets loud. And if you want to go further and support the channel directly, join the fleet. You'll get loyalty badges, priority replies, and you'll help us bring even more real maritime stories to the surface. Just click join on our channel page and hop aboard. In the end, the Venezuelan Navy didn't just pick the wrong target. They picked the worst possible day to forget their map. I'll see you in the next one.